Welcome to Attic Raiders Retro Reviews, where today I'm taking a look at the Wargames Atlantic Pulp Adventure Zombies box set, which came out in January this year. The zombies in this were digitally sculpted by Rob McFarlane, and Wargames Atlantic has specifically gone for a really general kit which can pretty much cover any historical period that you might want zombies from. From ancient Rome to Vikings and cowboys to Napoleonic and World War zombies, as well as modern zombies and really generic regular zombies. Each box comes with 5 sprues in it, and each of those sprues is exactly the same. Each sprue containing 6 bodies, 18 arms and 75 heads. As far as pricing goes for this zombies kit, at £30 a box for 30 figures, it works out at £1 per whole zombie. Now, if you take the retail price of some of the competitor zombie kits that are out there and split that between the number of zombies you get in that kit to find the price per zombie, you will find that this Pulp zombie kit lands pretty much in the middle of that pricing range. In theory, this box set is so general, it should satisfy any wargamer who wants 28mm scale zombies in one of their games. But just how good is it? Is it the ultimate zombie box set? Well, let's take a closer look at this thing and find out. So let's take a proper look at the Wargames Atlantic sprue. And as I said, in the box you get 5 sprues and they're all exactly the same. You can see here that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bodies. So with this sprue you're going to be able to build 6 whole zombies. But of course there's a lot more head options on here than there is bodies. So you can have lots of heads left over for kit bashing. Although there's only 6 bodies on this sprue, there's 18 arms on here, which is going to be enough for 9 bodies. There's also a hell of a lot of heads. In fact, there are 75 heads. So once you build these 6 bodies, you're going to have an awful lot left over. The bodies really are very, very generic. They are wearing rags, but there's nothing on these rags. There's no buckles or clips or belts or anything like that which would give them a particular period in history, and that's quite deliberate so that you can have zombie heads from Rome on these, but you could also have brand new modern day civilians on these. Now, one of the things that I would have liked with the layout of this sprue is if they could have gotten it so that all of these were on the same bar. If this head was turned round and attached to this bar, we could just clip it here and here, and then this bar here would be able to come off, and it would be much better for storage, because clipping all of these heads off individually, they're all going to get mixed up and you're going to have to try and figure out which heads are which and sort them out. But having the whole sprue might be a bit tricky with storage. But if you could just clip them and have a piece of sprue here with all of the heads attached to it, that would be much better. All of these, from what I can see, are going to be quite simple to clip off without causing any problems with any of the sprue bits getting in the way of the actual clipping point. Doesn't seem to be any problems there that I can see, so that's really nice. And as you can see, these are really quite nice chunky arms. They're not going to snap or fall apart easily, so there's lots and lots of potential for kit bashing here. At this point, let's clip everything off of the sprue so we can take a closer look at the different parts. Now, the poses and the fact that they're leaning forward as if they're lurching towards their victims, I do really like. And I like that they have got clothes on the upper half of their bodies, which the Kings of War zombie figures don't have. They're completely topless. For people using these for historical wargaming though, I think the generic bodies, I'm not sure how well that's going to work for people. If you've got a Roman soldier or a Roman zombie with a Roman soldier helmet, then why is he wearing a helmet without any of the rest of his armour? So I think, although they'll be really good for kit bashing, these generic bodies, I'm not quite sure how good they'll be for some of the people who should have very distinct uniforms. I'm also not really a big fan of these puddle integrated bases. Now the Wargames Atlantic set here does not come with any bases, which will be one of the reasons why these integrated bases are part of the figures, but I'm really not a fan of these. And given how close the sculpts of those toes are to the bases, it's going to be quite difficult to separate the feet from the bases, or if not difficult, it's going to be quite a bit of work. So we might just have to go with the puddle bases and build up on top of them. But I'm not a big fan of having to do that, and I would prefer that there was no integrated bases at all. You can see with the 18 arm options here that there's lots of different variations from straight arms to bent arms. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 right arms and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 left arms. And there's the option, like these ones on the top row here, to have them with parts of clothes hanging on them, or they can be completely bare. And apart from this arm here, which has got a bone in its hand, then all of these arms are completely empty. There's no accessories or weapons in them, which again is really good for a generic kit because it doesn't tie it down to a particular period. As I said before, the sprue was nicely laid out so that all the heads of the same kind were generally all together, but they weren't all together necessarily on the same bar. So what I've actually done here is snipped some of them from one bar and glued them to another, just so that they're all of the heads of the same kind are on the same bar for the purposes of this video, because it just makes it much clearer and it's nicer. You can see these are the generic heads, and what's interesting is that they are all bald. These ones have all got their mouths open. This one over here, who's upside down, he has got his bottom jaw missing. But these are very generic, and these could be used on absolutely anything. These are the Viking period heads, and as you can see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 heads with this Norman style helmet, and then we've got another 1, 2, 3 heads over here, which have got this much more kind of traditional, if you like, Viking helmet, which has got the eyepiece covering the eyes. Here we have the 6 18th century heads, or pirate heads, because each one of them is wearing a tricorn hat. We've got 6 Roman zombie heads, and these ones seem to be missing parts of their face covering on their helmet. Here's 6 of our modern zombie heads. 2 of these here are wearing beanie hats. We've got 2 with construction worker helmets on, and these 2 are wearing caps. And then we've got a couple more modern zombies. These 2 are from the Fire Regiment. These 2 are policemen. This is the British style, or old British style of helmet. And then we've got these 2 American style police caps. These are our 6 cowboy heads. We've got 2 with very flat peaks on their hats, 3 here with curved peaks, and this one whose hat kind of curves up at the front rather than at the sides. We've got 6 British World War I heads, some of them with straps and some of them without. Another 6 French World War I or II heads. And we've got 6 German heads from the World War. And then moving to the Napoleonic era, we've got 6 British zombie heads, and we've got 6 French zombie heads. Overall, there's a lot of variety and choice here, although you will notice that although they're wearing different hats, the faces are basically the same. There's 6 different faces, but those are repeated for each subgroup, but just with a different hat digitally sculpted on top of it. For example, this hanging off jaw on this cowboy is repeated on this Dark Age Norman over here, on this Napoleonic Frenchman here, this Napoleonic British soldier here, this pirate down here, this French World War soldier here, the British World War soldier, the German World War soldier, and this police officer here. So this variety is really why you're going to be buying this kit. However, for somebody like me who doesn't play a lot of different games, then a lot of these are not going to be useful to me at all. Now, I play mainly sci-fi Stargrave. I should be able to use these civilian heads here, and I can definitely use these generic heads here, but all of these other ones are not of any use to me. So I'm going to end up with an awful lot of wastage, which is just going to sit around not being used. Now, it would have been more work, but I really would have liked to have seen the hats and the helmets on most of these as a completely separate entity. Now, these Roman soldiers with the cheek flaps, yeah, they would have to be all in integrated head, but pretty much all the rest of these who have got their hats on, the hats, I think, could have been a completely separate piece, so that the user, the buyer, could glue them onto a head. And doing that, I think, would save on a lot of wastage and have a lot more kit bashing possibilities. The helmets or the hats could even be used on completely different figures which weren't zombies. But let's see what we can do and build up from this kit. So as expected, these went together really easily. Flashing was at a bare minimum, needed very little cleanup work. The parts fitted together well, and all of the arms and heads are good proportions with the rest of the body. As you'll notice straight away, I couldn't live with those integrated bases, so I have sliced them off, which is what's caused a bit of discoloration on the toes of these feet here where they've bent, where I've been cutting it, but once paint's on that, that will not be noticeable at all. And getting rid of those puddle bases was easier than I thought. I didn't have to use my Dremel, I just used a hobby knife. We've got a nice variety of poses. The only thing I did have to do was two of the necks were awkwardly long and did have to be sliced down a bit. Now, detail is pretty good on these, but you will notice that it's actually quite soft. The detail, it's not as sharp as I have seen on other kits. And the heads, although being different from each other, they all are very similar. Now, of course, there's lots of spare parts, so as far as kit bashing goes, I've taken some of the generic heads and the spare arms from this kit and applied them to some Wargames Atlantic cannon fodder bodies. And I think it really is here that you start seeing the difference in the sculpt quality. This cannon fodder body, look at how crisp and sharp that detail is compared to the arms on here and the head. If we take one of these zombie kit bodies and compare that to a cannon fodder body, you can see the difference is night and day as far as the crispness of the detail here. This one is much sharper than this. I would also say that as far as kit bashing goes, then the heads, they fit onto here quite nicely, but the arms I'm not so sure about. To me, they look a little short compared with the rest of the body. And you'll really notice that compared to some of these Stargrave scavenger zombie arms, which I've kit bashed onto these, again, cannon fodder bodies a while ago, and you can see the difference in the arm length is quite significant. These Stargrave zombie arms are quite a lot more in scale, I would say, than these Pulp zombie arms. So using these Pulp zombie pieces for kit bashing might be a little bit difficult depending on what you're trying to kit bash together. Overall then, I think this Pulp zombie kit is good, but I would be building them on these bodies because I'm not quite sure that these arms will match up really nicely with other kits. If I was going for modern day zombies, I think I would be going for other companies. And if I was doing historical zombies, well, I would definitely be using this zombie kit for the heads, but I'm not so sure about the bodies on these. If I was doing historical zombies, I would want the historical uniforms to be much more accurate than these generic rags. But if I'm wanting some Nazi or some Napoleonic zombies, I'm definitely going to be using the heads from this kit. So overall, I think this is going to be really good for kit bashing historical zombies, but for modern day zombies, I think there's better options out there, and that it's worth bearing in mind that the detail on these is quite soft. But what do you think? Would you be picking up this kit? Have you used it for kit bashing? What's your opinion on these and how well they go together with other kits? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Well, I hope this has been useful to you. If it has, please remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time with more Attic Raiders retro reviews.